Hello and welcome back to WD18, the Watford fan channel, and welcome back to another podcast. A lot to talk about today, and I'm delighted, absolutely delighted to say we've got the main man on, Shane. How are you doing, buddy? At Hornet Shane as well. Make sure you do give him a follow. Shane, how's it going, buddy?
I'm alright, man. I'm alright. How are you?
Yeah, not not too bad. I mean, the last time I spoke to you, it must have been, well, we all obviously speak on WhatsApp, but I haven't seen you at a Watford game, obviously, due to these reasons. I think the last time I did a fan cam with you must have been Liverpool at home.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah. I mean, we've done a couple of other videos as well on the channel, but I mean, it's been so strange still, isn't it? Not being at matches, watching them on TV, having to listen to absolutely awful TV punditry. I should just say that because apart from the rubbish football on Saturday, that became quite a common theme as well, and I'll get onto that in slightly more detail later. But it's very, very depressing at the moment. If we're looking ahead to like the Norwich game, I'm thinking about it now. It's the most nervous I'm going to be for a league game. I think as long as I can remember, there are obviously, when we first came into the Prem, like we had big games like Spurs and United, but that wasn't nervousness. That was excitement. I look at the next game against Norwich, and I'm so scared. I mean, I cannot put into words.
It's probably the biggest period we've had as a football club since the promotion season under Slavisa,
Yep.
I think. I
Yep.
think I'd go
Yep.
that far because
Absolutely.
that run-in with the Middlesbrough game, was it Millwall, Brighton, Birmingham as well, those games were so big and you could feel the tension inside Vicarage Road. Obviously, we won't get to experience that this time round, but it's such a big period. I mean, I'm nervous already for the Norwich game.
It worries me so much. And the reason why it worries me, right, is because of the games over the weekend. Let's be clear, Norwich are going to be looking at our game on tomorrow night, licking their lips at the prospect of playing us. A side that is no confidence, the fact that the fans are going to be nervous. Let's be clear, Norwich are pretty much down. So they're going to come to Vicarage Road. They're going to be playing for pride. And, they've got the good in that team. And if we're not careful, we could have our pack down.
Norwich have nothing to lose. I mean, they're 6 points away from safety. I mean, the pressure is all on Watford. I'd even go as far to say if we lose against Norwich, then we're effectively relegated. I mean,
Oh, it's curtains.
It's curtains, isn't it?
Yeah, no, it's curtains. And I think a lot of people, that listen to this, that listen to our channel, that interact with our content, they will be wanting us now to give them, a little bit of hope for the games that remain. I'm going to just put it out there, and I think as you said, if we lose to Norwich, I can't see it. I cannot see how we're going to get out of it because we've got so many tough games coming up. We've still Man City, we've still got Arsenal to play. We are not going to be going into a game against Man City needing a result. We cannot rely on a trip to the Emirates to stay in the Premier League. This is stuff that we should have been done ages ago. And in hindsight on everything, if we look back at the game, I'm guilty of it. I'm sure a lot of Watford fans were celebrating Dawson's goal as if we'd qualify for the Europa League or something. I mean, but in fairness, though, I think that was partly emotional as well because, hadn't celebrated a goal in a long time. And, the whole emotion of, oh my God, if we'd been at the Vic, then that would have been amazing and all that. But in hindsight now, the goal was great, but the point was actually pretty bad because Leicester only really got started on Saturday and they've been struggling. The Burnley game, if we look back at that was just appalling on all levels. But the Southampton game, for me, the Southampton game was the big turning point. I think I had a lot of faith going into the Burnley game. I had faith in the Southampton game. I felt the tide turning after Southampton. A game of the Vic, again where Southampton absolutely trounced us all over the pitch. And it was in that moment when I saw that game, sitting there watching it, and I thought, all right, there's now a possibility that we could go down. That's only been heightened by the Chelsea game on Saturday.
The Burnley and the Southampton game really frustrated me. I think particularly as you mentioned the Southampton game, just because the lack of application, discipline, intensity, tempo, cohesion, it was just lacking everything. I mean, absolutely everything. We haven't spoken to you about that Burnley and Southampton game, and the Leicester game it's been a long time now, well, a couple of weeks. That Burnley and Southampton game, what was the biggest disappointment for you coming out of those two games?
I think what was worse is that actually I didn't see the fact that we actually had a plan in those games. I look at the Burnley game. you know, I mean, we had maybe 3 shots on target. There was no coherent game plan. I feel like the formation that we selected was wrong as well. We're going to get onto this as well, but Troy up top on his own just doesn't work anymore. But when is Nigel Pearson going to realise that? He's not changing the team up enough. You can't go Troy up top on his own. That doesn't work. Defensively, we've been shambolic since from the restart. And actually, not even from the restart. I mean, let's be honest. For this entire season, our defense hasn't been on it, but it got highlighted when we played against, I say, Southampton. Oh my God, Cathcart's tackle. I mean, was it even a tackle? Was it just when you press circle on your PlayStation and just puts in some sort of like random thing? I don't even know. And that's the worst thing about it. Dawson was slower than a freight train trying to get back to look after, to try and kind of, take some sort of hold on the game up against Danny Ings. And Danny Ings, oh my God, it was a field day for him. Wasn't helped, of course, Foster's mistake, but, I berated Foster at the time in front of my TV and threw a remote at him when he came back on again. But it was...
Is the TV all right?
Yeah, no, listen, look, the TV's okay, but Foster might not be, because actually, do you know what? I kind of thought of it and I thought, do you know what? Actually, he's kept us in more games this season than I can count, right? But it was just such a sloppy error. But the problem is that it's not like, it's a sloppy error, but our defense are going to try and do something about it. It all just stood there and watched him. On Saturday, the game on Saturday, when all those goals were scored, our defense, Buckley's goal in particular, just stood and watched the shot go in. Foster stood and watched the shot go in. He was well beaten for all 3 goals on Saturday. It seems to be a lack of fight, a lack of intensity. We're heartless. And at the end of the day, Chelsea didn't need to get out of second gear. I follow a few Chelsea fans on Twitter, and they were saying, this is an easy game. This was a routine win.
I did my match review on the channel, and I came away nowhere near the levels that after the Southampton game. I mean, I think that's an all-time low this season anyway. I think the Southampton away game probably comes close under Kike, but you also felt at that point that you would trust the Pozzos to make a change. I mean, they shouldn't have brought Kike back, in my opinion, in the first place, but they brought him back, and at that point you're thinking, okay, they'll get rid of him. We'll get someone in. We'll get out this mess. It wasn't certain. I mean, as we've seen up to this point, it's still not 100% that we're going to stay up. And I mean, the percentages are going down every week. But I felt so low after that Southampton I felt so low after the Southampton home game, and in the Chelsea game, the first 60 minutes. I mean, before the first goal, okay, we did show discipline. But we didn't show any attacking intent. But the last 30 minutes, Danny Welbeck came on. And I'm not saying Danny Welbeck is the saviour of our season. But what we saw with Danny Welbeck is someone who actually moves off the ball, creates space for others, looked actually quite dangerous. And it highlighted to me, and I don't want to put all the stick on Troy, but there was a lack of attacking threat. And that was actually... And Deeney's a part of it. I mean, Deeney isn't exempt from criticism, is he? He's a Watford legend. We all love Troy Deeney, but he's not exempt from criticism. Was the positive for you, Danny Welbeck coming on? And actually, I would start him against Norwich. I don't know about you.
Can I just say that actually, when you said that Danny Welbeck came on, could be the saviour of our season. I had a picture of him in that whole Wele meme. So, I just had that image in my mind, and I thought it could happen. But I think what annoyed me more about the Chelsea game was that I didn't see anything different from the game. I didn't feel like the players were all more up for it. It's not like, do you know what? We lost that game 2-1, but there was fight. As Alan Smith, who bumbled his way through commentary, on saying, in this game, Watford need to take something, even if it's not a point. They need to take something out the game. What did we take out of that game? What sort of positive was there? Because I didn't see any. I have to agree with you, though, about Danny Welbeck. He looked good when he came on. I feel like if he was slightly sharper, he would have taken that chance so that he... I think Chalobah put him through, and a very, very good chance just in the corner, a bit more power. And who knows, that could have ended up in the net, and we may have a constellation. But Troy is not immune from criticism, but... I've said this to you already. I feel like Troy will be here next season, regardless as to what division we're in. We could be a Premier League side, we could be a Championship side. It doesn't matter. I feel like Troy will stay because the amount of money that he commands per week, is he willing to take a pay cut? No. He's 32 years old. Despite a few amusing chats I have with other fans in the Premier League, I don't think there's anyone seriously that would take Troy. So I feel like we've kind of been lumbered with him. And for me, it's a of two things. You either put him in a partnership. I wouldn't mind him starting on Tuesday if he was in a partnership with Welbeck. I think Welbeck has to start though, regardless. Is if you're not going to start him, bring him off the bench. He did that under Silva. I remember. I think he came on for the Arsenal game. He won us a penalty. He scored the pen, and we went on to win that game. That was a big moment for Troy, because actually that proved that, okay, well, you know what, actually he's not good enough to start matches, and maybe he's not the most mobile, but actually he's able to come on, he's able to give us that push that we need. There are lots of fans out there that said that Troy needs 8 games to get going, which I think is too much, and he thrives off the crowd. But we knew that coming into this anyway. We knew that he would be one of the players that might struggle with kind of with the whole new normal kind of thing. But it's just failed so spectacularly, because he didn't have a single shot on target. He looked like a centre back. Honestly, like the way that we were trying to push back. He didn't seem to be involved. Welbeck came on. He changed the game. He very nearly set up Will Hughes as well at the end. I think whatever happens though for Norwich, Welbeck has to start. The thing I don't understand with Nigel Pearson is I feel like he just doesn't want to change things up. There's something that he sees something in Troy. I think that's the real issue. But what does he see that we all don't see? Because he can't start up top on his own. He doesn't really attack the ball, doesn't really press the ball. He can't turn. I see lorries in my street turn quicker than Troy. And I don't mean that in a nasty way. There was a time in his career whereby he was brilliant. He had a quick turn of pace, but he had other people around him. I feel like now Pearson's like, okay, well, you know what? You're captain. You're starting up top. You go make it happen. I think it's unfair on us. I think it's unfair on him as well, to be honest.
This is the thing with Troy, and I don't want to... I think people have kind of taken what I've put on Twitter about him holding the team back tactically as a personal attack on him. That's not the case. But when the jeopardy of the football club and the league status of the football club is at stake, it's time to change something. We've got 5 games left. He'll regret looking back. Why didn't I give Welbeck a go? And as you said, Deeney's he makes an impact off the bench. I don't really understand why you wouldn't start Danny Welbeck if you're going to play the 4-2-3-1 system. And this is a bigger issue in terms of the system that Troy thrives in. You cannot play Troy anymore in the Premier League in a one-up-top system as a lone striker. It cannot be done. As we've seen throughout this season, okay, there's been a couple of performances, but overall, he doesn't really impact the game. He doesn't. As a one-up-top striker, and we've seen the best of Troy Deeney with partners, countless times. Even Delafeu last season, Igalo, Vidra. The list goes on. He plays well with a pacey striker next to him. Now, I don't think Danny Welbeck in the Deeney partnership would work. It's obviously worth giving it a go. We saw against Burnley. There were times, there was flurries of it kind of working, but not at the same time. But I think if we're going to continue with the 4-2-3-1 system, Danny Welbeck has to be a striker and not Troy.
A channel that we are, as a podcast that we're doing, we need to be really honest, and we need to, I think at times, just need to stick the knife in and just be really honest about it. Troy can't start up front on his own. It's as simple as that. But I feel like it's the emotion that we have around Troy that holds a lot of people back from admitting that. Because you know me well. I love Troy. We all love Troy. And it'll be sad when he does eventually leave this club. But for the good of this team right now, with our Premier League status on the line, I think it's unforgivable of Pearson to not change something.
I have to say, Shane, with Mariappa, and this is not against Adrian Mariappa, because I actually thought he played pretty well against Chelsea. He did the best of his ability. This is the point I was trying to make earlier, is that Adrian Mariappa did the best of his ability, but it's not fair for a player like Adrian Mariappa, who's out of position anyway. He's not even playing at centre-half. He's out of position. It's not his comfortable position. He's up against Christian Pulisic. And fair play to Mariappa. He did really, really well. And I have to salute Mariappa, because before the match, I was like, what are we doing? We're playing an out-of-position centre-back at right-back, Kiko at left-back. And again, Kiko probably one of the bright sparks for us, I think, since we've come back. He's probably been one of the most consistent players. But Mariappa, I have to take my hats off to him because he held his own. I think that's probably the way I describe that performance. He held his own. And in those circumstances, I didn't really understand why Kiko just didn't play right back and Messina and Holebas didn't play left back.
But my point here, though, is we shouldn't be doffing our cap to Mariappa because he shouldn't be playing. There are a lack of options at right back. There are better players out there, out there than Adrian Mariappa. And you're right, it is unfair on him to be in that position. But what does that come back to ultimately? It comes back to the recruitment of players. Because it's fine to have Mariappa in our squad, but the guy who comes off the bench, the second choice pretty much at right back, Matt's injured or whatever. Come on, man. You're not going to stay in the Premier League. I love Mariappa. He's a great, he's done a few things with us here on the channel and all that, but I think even he knows. He's an honest guy. Even he knows there should be more options there. In that right back position, centre back positions as well. I mean, we look clueless. And I will say this just before we move on from this Chelsea game, because I don't get a chance to say it now. I know I saw your tweet about it as well. Etienne Capoue on Saturday. What the hell was that tackle? I was embarrassed. I was embarrassed for him, to be quite honest with you. I was embarrassed. What the hell are you doing? Out of all the players on the pitch, if that was a young 19-year-old we put in, all right, okay, fair enough, yeah, all right, he's a bit rash, he cared. Capoue, the amount of experience that guy has got, I was disappointed. I was disappointed, very disappointed.
I think out of all the players you'd expect to make that challenge, I think Capoue would have been quite low on the list. It was so disappointing, as you mentioned, Shane, that someone of his experience, actually ability as well, and I think, again, if we're going to be brutally honest, he's been way below par since we've come back. And just looking at a bigger point, it feels like we've come back, whether the fitness levels are lower, whether, I don't know, the mentality just isn't there. And interestingly, there was a piece released by Adam Leventhal for The Athletic today, and he said one former employee of the club told The Athletic that they believe the mental resilience of the squad had been an issue earlier this season and that some subconscious scarring may exist from some of the significant setbacks they've experienced. So effectively, the not getting to Europe and the FA Cup final.
It was damning, though, wasn't it? It's the reason why. It's probably even the reason as to why we're in this situation now. We just haven't recovered form from that. There's not been a spell whereby we're like, yeah, do you know what, man? We're over the cup final now. It's still a hangover. It's like the worst hangover. It's not like a hangover whereby, it's a bit dodgy for like a few months, but then we're all right. This hangover could send us down.
Do you really think it's had that much of an impact?
Yeah, I do. And I feel like there's another part of it as well because, I don't want to take away any of the dangers, of the coronavirus and the situation that we're in right now. But there was real opposition from within the club for us to actually return. Scott Duxbury, I think, went as far as to be like, yeah, we're happy to come back as long as everything's kind of safe. But when I read his statement, I didn't feel convinced. It wasn't like, yeah, let's come back, let's get football going for the good of the league. I didn't feel that when I read his statement. I feel like it's like, yeah, we could come back, or we don't really want to because of where we are, and as the restarts kind of carried on, I've just had this inevitable sinking feeling. In your heart of hearts right now, are you confident that we're going to do that? Are you confident that we are going to turn things around? Because normally, if we were going into these kind of matches, I would be like, yeah, all right, we've got the personnel, we can do it. We've been in a sticky situation so far, but I feel like we're going to get through it because of wins X, Y, and Z. But we haven't had X, Y, and Z wins since the restart. We're going off old glories.
Could you see Nigel Pearson leaving if we don't get a minimum of, I think, 4 points against Norwich and Newcastle?
Do I think Pearson will leave before the end of the season? I think it could happen. If we don't beat Norwich, there's a big chance that could happen. In a way, to kind of capitalise on the new manager bounce. Could a new manager come in and get a result at Newcastle, West Ham, maybe push City? A City side that are now not really playing for anything. Who do you bring in that respect? I will say one thing though. I think it has been put down in Pearson's contract that if he doesn't keep us up, then he's off anyway. So even if he survives until the end of the season, I feel like deep down he will stay until the end of the season. I think in my gut, I feel like he will, because there's no point in changing things up right now.
But Shane, it's concerning though that this is even like being suggested. I think.
Yeah, I know it is. It is. I don't feel like we'll get rid of him. I don't feel like we will. If I see the beautiful Watford corner flag on Twitter, and I see the fact that the club have tweeted that out, it wouldn't surprise me. But I don't think it will happen. I don't think he'll stay here next season though. I feel like that's been pretty clear. I feel like his body language has changed. I feel like his body language has changed massively from the upbeat side. Well, not so much upbeat, but slightly more. He looks slightly more with it against Leicester. Doing the media interviews, had a bit of a smile on his face. He's literally just scowled through that Chelsea interview. All right, the result was bad, but I didn't look at him and be like, yeah, this guy, do you know what? He's going to get us going for the next game. He's going to get us up for it. And that's maybe why there are fans out there that might veer towards he may go before the end of the season. I don't think that's going to happen. I feel like that will just shoot us in the foot. And who the hell do you bring in?
It must have to be Hayden Mullins. I can't see any manager coming in for a 4-game period.
And I'm going to say it now. All right, I think it's downright disrespectful to bring in Hayden Mullins. A guy who took us through 2 or 3 games. All right, well, it's not really worked out with Pearson. Oh yeah, look, there are 3 games left to save our season. Hey, Hayden, go and do that. Go and save our season. That's unfair on him. It'll tarnish his reputation. He's done a fantastic job with our under-23s. I think that would be really, really unfair on him. And I would actually feel for him as well. Standing there on the touchline, not knowing what's going on, and probably knowing that, do you know what? My name's going to be by a relegation season. Early part of December, it doesn't really matter because it's all about the second half of the season. But that little 3-4 game run, it'll be obvious to fans. It'll be obvious to people. Oh, well, he's just been brought in to kind of turn things around. Oh, and he's not done that. Oh, well, he can't be that good then. You can't base that. You can't put a decision like that in his hands. You can't be like, okay, well, do you know what? Three games left. You go out and you pick the team. You go out and you motivate these players. I think it's really harsh to do so.
There was one source that suggested they wouldn't be surprised if they did that. There's definitely, I think, a mood inside the club that, as we saw. I remember if we take it back to the start of this season, I remember that we actually released a tweet which suggested if Cavi didn't beat Newcastle, then he would go. And we were proven right. Not to say it we're the best source, but we were proven right because Kike actually was beginning discussions after that West Ham game. So, it was pretty obvious that they were going to get rid of Javi. I don't agree with the manner of the dismissal, but it was pretty evident that was going to happen. Now, with Nigel Pearson, this is so concerning, I think, for him. If he's reading these articles and if he must be hearing about whispers. Head coaches aren't naive, are they? They do know what's going on. They know the atmosphere. They know the atmosphere of the board. They know the intention of the board. If he's hearing what we're hearing, I think it's curtains if he loses against Norwich. And if he beats Norwich or gets a draw and loses to Newcastle, I think it's curtains. We're going into arguably one of the biggest weeks in this football club in recent history. And let's not underestimate how crucial this period is. And we're hearing information and we're hearing sources say that they wouldn't be surprised if Nigel went. And actually, it will determine his future as Watford head coach. I don't know whether they're suggesting for the rest of this season. I'd imagine so. I don't think he'll be kept on regardless of our Premier League status. I think the form, 7 defeats in our last 10, that isn't good enough. And as you said, Shane, we've had standout wins. We've had Manchester United. We've had Wolves. We've had Liverpool. But this isn't good enough at the moment. And actually, Nigel Pearson, yes, he has to take responsibility, but he hasn't been helped. There's been so many factors this season, as I mentioned numerous times, that have forced his hand. But I just think, Shane, it's so concerning. We're going into such a big week and a period for the football club, and we're discussing whether Nigel Pearson will be kept on. We're not even... yes, of course there's a focus on the game, but the fact this is in the background cannot help, can it?
Let's be honest, right? Our football club is very much like a chip shop when it comes to managers. We always have a couple in the fryer, just in case. We do. You go into a fish and chip shop, there will be fish being made. There will be chips being made. There is a load waiting.
What do you get from the fish and chip shop?
It's got to be cod in it. Cod and chips, man.
Oh,
Classic.
Yeah, bro.
Classic.
Sorry, mate. Carry on. I was just really intrigued. I think the listeners want to know. The listeners want to know what you get from the chippy.
In all seriousness, though, the form has been bad. The form has been terrible. The owners know that. They're the first people that... I saw Giraldi was shown on Sky Sports at the end of the game on Saturday, wasn't he? sitting there with Troy whilst Troy was having a drink. He knows, man. Giraldi, he's like that spectre that you find in horror films. He's there, isn't he? He's there, and he's watching, and he's noticing, but he's looking at the bench. He's looking at Pearson. What's he doing? Shakespeare as well. It must be incredibly tough. And I feel like Javi kind of crumbled under that a little bit. Javi's a great guy. I don't think he does politics. And I feel like Giraldi's sitting there is a little bit political. He sits there, he watches like like sort of evil spectre. But lots of fans are kind of touched on this as well. They talk about, regardless of what happens, if we go down, it'll be easier to do, we have to do like a full rebuild. What does that actually mean? A full rebuild, right? Great. So we get rid of all the players and that we think are rubbish. Okay, well, we're going to be left with half a squad then.
I think the rebuild that people have been discussing is more to do with actually the ages of the current squad. And I'll just read them out to you, okay? So we've got, obviously, Aurelio Gomez, 38, Foster, 36, Holebas, 35, Maps, 32, Caputh, 31, Deeney, 31, Cathcart, 30, Yanmat, 30, Dawson, 29, Cleverley, 29, Feminir, 28, Cabasele, 28, Pereira, 28, Welbeck, 28, Gray, 28. And bear in mind, quite a lot of those guys are on long-term deals.
I feel like this week and whether or not we go down isn't just. I will just say one last thing. Actually, isn't just about this week. I think it's about the long-term future of this football club, because we got to look at the Pozzos as well. Are they going to want to stay for in the Championship again? This is not part of their big project for us. And I feel like, a lot of fans haven't really thought about it. That is the one thing that's at the forefront of my mind. And it's maybe something that we could discuss in like a future podcast. But if this week doesn't go right for us, and, let's be clear, if we lose on Tuesday, Newcastle are in great form, for Saturday, our Premier League status could be decided by next Saturday lunchtime, by next Saturday afternoon. And then you've got to ask yourself the question, okay, great. So what happens now then? Are the Potters going to really invest in this team? Are they going to really invest in a big rebuild of this squad? Look at other clubs that are in the Championship right now. Stoke, QPR. Those guys aren't going to see the light of the Premier League for years. And then you've got other sides in there like Blackburn who haven't seen it since God knows, 2005. Do we really want to do that? There are massive questions to be asked on the managerial front, the ownership front, and also the squad's mentality front. The one thing that isn't going to change is our support, because regardless as to what's happening, we'll still be there, cheering on the lads, Tuesday evening. Do or die, win or bust. It's become as simple as that.
I'm nervous already. That's a great way to wrap it up, Shane. Thank you very much for your time today, buddy. If you don't follow Shane already, how are you not following Shane already? It's at Hornet Shane on Twitter.
I can think of a few reasons.
What's your Instagram? What's your Instagram, Shane? I forgot.
At HShane, WD18.
Top man. And look at that. He's got WD18 in his Insta account. I mean, if that isn't worth a follow, then I don't know what it is. But thank you very much to Shane for coming on. Make sure you do follow us on WD18 at WD18 fans on Twitter and Instagram. If you're listening on YouTube, make sure you do subscribe. And if you're listening on some audio, whether that's Spotify, iTunes or SoundCloud, leave us a review. Make sure you do subscribe. Thank you very much for listening. And we'll see you after the Norwich game. Thanks, guys.